for watching the Cherry Garage. Today we're going to do a how-to on removing and replacing rear shocks and struts on a 2001 Mazda Protege. This one's an MP3 model. We're going to show you what tools you need, how to take them out, how to take the springs off, put the springs on the new shocks, and then put it all back together. Here's the rear shock absorber, one of them. I think this might be the left side, I don't know. But they are directional, so there's one for one side, one for the other. Don't get it mixed up. Right here is the mounting points onto the hub on the rear, so basically where your wheel mounts. Right here is the mount for the sway bar linkage. So this is actually the driver's side, because it mounts on the back. This is the mount for your brake line. And then your spring will sit in here. There's a spring seat that goes in between it, it's rubber. It's a good idea to replace those because they go bad pretty often. And then it comes in the package compressed, so you're going to want to push it down, take this piece off, and then the top will have a top plate that mounts onto the top of the spring, and then you can fit it all in. We'll do it through the process of taking it apart first and looking at the old one and seeing when mine broke. So for this you're going to need a couple tools. I have a breaker bar with impact sockets just because they're larger, crescent wrenches, a ratchet set for the upper end of the shock absorber, and then I have my jack that's going to support the lower assembly, so when I disconnect this shock it won't fall on me. And then I'm doing the method of using ratchet straps to retain the spring tension. It's a better idea to get a coil compressor kit. You can get one from any local auto parts store to rent. They're these big clamps, basically like C-clamps almost, that you thread to tighten them down. But this will work for this job because we're just going to keep the springs compressed and in that position. Whereas if you were to use the spring compressor, you're able to let the tension off and have the spring sitting out wherever you want. So first I'm going to put the jack underneath the rear suspension, jack it up just a little bit, and then start taking off the lower bolt, mounting bolts. That's a 17mm socket on both sides, at least for mine. And then the top end I think is a 12mm, there's 4 of them I think, 3 or 4 nuts on the top end. We'll have to take the rear deck off for that. And you can go right under the hub. There's a spot where the trailing arm connects to the bottom of it. You can just jack right there, just lift it up a little bit, just like that. And then take your breaker bar and your 17mm crescent wrench. There we go. Now you can take the nut off the top one, and then you can go down to the next one before taking the top bolt off. That way it keeps it aligned and it's easier to get both bolts out. But it's also a good idea to have a rubber mallet so you can punch those out, because they're usually in there pretty stiff. Alright, that's the lower half. So now that the nuts are off, I'm going to go to the top half, take those nuts off, so that when I knock these out, this whole assembly will just fall right through. But I want to catch it, of course. So in this car, you got to take down the rear seats. There's a little plastic tab on the next to the headrests. You pull it up, and you can lower the seats down, and it lets you take off the rear deck. It's all that's on it is you might have the retaining trim bolts. I took those out because you don't need them, but all you need to do is just pop the whole thing up, and it should come right off, just like that. Right down here, you see those shiny threads and those golden nuts. There's 3 of them. That's what you're going to be taking off. Oh, that's so they're tight. Now it's the one that's beneath this that's tough to get. If you don't have a swivel socket for this one down here, below this, then you can also take off this tensioner with this bolt right here and get it out of the way for yourself. Just be sure to tie a wire around it or something, not let it go all the way down. It can sometimes do something weird to the tension, so you can tie it to like right here or something. Get out of your way. This is the tool that I used to get that one bolt that was hard to get. It's a swivel socket. Reach right underneath there. You can leave the nuts up in that little well because you're going to be using them again. And then it's important now To go back on the bottom side, we're going to be taking the brake line off and this sway bar link off. Unfortunately on my side, the sway bar link broke off, which is why I'm replacing it, but I'll show you what you need to do based on the sway bar link that is broken off. So here's my sway bar link. I'll show you how it's normally fastened. You'll have your shock absorber sitting there, and this mounts, as you can see, this is the tab that broke off, just like right where that one is. The sway bar links that I have a insert for a hex key, and that way, because the threading actually spins, so you're gonna have to find a way. Some of them have a position at the base of the threading that have where you can put a crescent wrench on there to hold it. Depending on which style you have, you can tell by the threading on it. I think the factory actually comes with neither of those, so you might have to vice grip the end of it, which sucks because you kind of ruin the threading on it, but they just designed it that way, which sucks. It's a good idea also to buy a new set of these because they usually end up breaking. So what you're gonna wanna do is take the nut off the top end that's connected to the shock absorber, push it out, and then you can just move it to the side. That way it's disconnected. Now once you get the sway bar link disconnected, you want to take the brake line off. There's a connection on the back side of the shock absorber, a little metal tab back here. You can use a pair of pliers. You grab that part that's folded over itself. You grab it well, and you just wiggle it. As you pull it out, you can see it's moving a little bit, just like that. That's what it looks like. And then you can take the brake line, push it down, and pull it out. That way it's disconnected from it. So now we have everything disconnected. The top end is unbolted. The bottom end has these bolts in, so we can knock those out and then lower the suspension and remove the entire unit. I'm gonna use my dead blow, similar to a rubber mallet. You gotta be mindful of this brake line not to hit it. So you wanna knock this out. Whoops. All right, this one's going right out. As you can see, shock absorber is now loose. I'm gonna go ahead and lower this setup with the jack, and then this will come out pretty easy. So right now, you can put it to the side, lower it down, and remove it. How rusty that is, it's terrible. All right, so what we're gonna do now is get the ratchet straps, retain the tension on this spring so that we're able to take this top half off. We'll be reusing this top half. Luckily I have a new set on this. Looks kind of rusty, but it's fine. And then take this nut off right here and switch it on over to the other one. So I bought a set of 500-pound working load ratchet straps. Do a minimum of 500 because we're gonna be using 2. These springs at minimum support 600 pounds each. So we wanna be able to not break these ratchet straps. So I put one on each side. I just have one right now to show you how it's set up. I have the main strap, the long one, mounted to the second bottom coil, going through the top second coil into the ratchet strap. And since this ratchet strap has such a long connected piece to it, I had it wrap around the bottom piece, same one that one's strapped on to the middle. So now that when I tighten it, it'll be pulling both of them like that, as you can see. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side, put an equal amount of force on both until it starts separating from the top. So now I got these set up close enough to directly across from each other on each side. I'll start applying equal tension to both sides until this separates. You don't need much, as you can see. I already have mine separated, just like that. So now you'll be able to take off this nut. It's nice to have a impact gun for that one, although they recommend not to use it when tightening it down. So you'll need a big pair of pliers or some type of vice grips on the base plate that holds this thread from spinning, and then just grip it and it should loosen up right up. And then it should come right off. Luckily the new set comes with a new nut. The nut are a nylock. They have a piece of nylon in there so they don't unthread themselves. But I'll give you the torque spec on it next. I know it's not tight at all. we'll be tightening it up once it's installed. Now the new shock absorbers, typically they should come with there's like a little guard and stopper that is over the strut itself. Unluckily, the ones I ordered didn't come with that. But you can see, oh man, I need that new spring. See, you can just take it right off and switch it over to the new one. So return the lower coil spring insulator rubber stopper at the bottom. Then you can put your spring back on. Make sure to line up the bottom coil with, there's a little dimple on the strut or shock itself on the base that lines up with it perfectly so it seats nicely. And then you'll want to get the top piece again. That also, if you're reusing it, you can see where the coil sat before, so it helps you, because otherwise you kind of have to line it up when you put it in. It's annoying. It's better just to line it up how it is. So I'm going to finger tighten this just past the nylon lock, and then watch your fingers as you loosen the tension in the springs. Just like that. And if you misalign it, you can re-tighten the spring a little bit to give you a little bit of moving way. Just make sure that it's all within that insulator piece. So that's the new McPherson strut assembly. We'll be throwing this on this side and then doing the same thing on that side. And I'll show you how to mount up the sway bar link. Show you the torque specs on the bolts and how to tighten up the top end. Now if you have the problem of this boot cover basically falling down, you want to have it all the way up. Get a zip tie around the base of it. You can just zip tie it down to keep it from falling. Feed it on up. Have your lower bolt on hand so that you can slide it in and keep it where it is. You can hold it, reach around, throw a nut on one of the threads to hold it up. It's the best thing to do. I'm gonna give you the torque specs real quick for all the nuts and bolts. The torque spec for the rod nut is gonna be 45 foot-pounds. The torque spec for the upper plate that goes inside of the body, those 3 nuts, those are about 45 foot-pounds. The torque spec for the bolts that go through here to the spindle, those 2 big ones, they're about 75, 80 foot-pounds. You can go up to 90. The torque spec, finally, for the sway bar linkage right here, that's about 35, 40 foot-pounds on that nut at the end. All right, once you get the top end all torqued down, you can put the jack back up to line these holes up in the lower mount. Now you get the 2 bottom ones in. You torque those down, and then work on putting the brake line in, and then the sway bar link. Once you got these torqued down to about 90, 80 foot-pound torque, you throw this brake line back in, put that nut underneath, pull it through, and then you can throw, this one actually goes the other way for some reason. So you get your sway bar link, yours should already be connected on the bottom, but you want to line it up by using the jack to push this strut to where the top hole will align with it. Get it in position, and then you can tighten the nuts down to the torque spec I mentioned. And then this side should be all done. So now you're ready to do the other side. I'm gonna put the tire back on this side. It's the same exact process on that other side, so I don't have to show you that. But once you're all done, you can just lower it down, let the springs settle, and it should be all good to go. Thanks for watching. This is the Cherry Garage. Check out our videos and other how-to videos. We have a vlog and updates on our cafe and our bar that we're building here. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website for our merchandise. We have a GoFundMe as well to help fund our project. Thank you.